Okay, again, get out your pencils. We've got lots of great content coming your way.
This segment is all about effective communication, and this is so important for anyone in business, moms in particular, not getting afraid to talk about your business and communicate with people, whether you're talking in a small intimate group or you're talking to 200 people in an auditorium.
Well, and it's so funny. I mean, this is not just for women, but our show focuses on moms. I had my friend Cliff, he was on our show. He said he started Toastmasters.
Yes, this is a great
Just to
opportunity.
kind of hone his chops. So we have Sherri Diller from the scholarlyfrog.com. Now, where did you get that name?
We have to know,
tell us where that name came
did that name come from?
I have to say it really came from a quiet moment with my son. I was reading this amazing book with him about frogs, and I was really struck by how adaptable these frogs are, but also how they're so diverse in the different species, and they each survive in their own way. But some frogs croak, some frogs ribbit, some bark, and they're all very distinct and different. And I realized that in my business, where I coach in presentation skills, go into corporations and deal with individuals as well, that I'm always trying to find that unique voice in the person. And so the Scholarly Frog really combines the technical aspects, the nuts and bolts, the expertise, the background, the training that I bring to teach people how to polish and be confident in a presentation, but then also combines that intuitive part you just talked about, intuition, where we're trying to draw out the authenticity in the individual, because the best speeches come when someone is polished and confident and knows their stuff, but is also very true to who they are.
Right, and you have a PhD as well, so there's a little scholarliness in you.
A little bit.
There's a little scholarliness.
Yes.
Some days more than others.
I mean, you're just talking about, and this is just kind of a tangent, but you're talking about the scholarly frog and how frogs are different. Have you ever seen that frog that the babies are born out of the mom's back?
Oh, it's amazing all the different. There are frogs that happens. There are frogs that actually freeze in the winter.
It's weird.
Completely freeze.
Frogs
and then
are
they
weird.
come back. They're very weird, but they're very unique. And I think that's really what I'm
3
trying to
frogs in
draw
my house.
out in individuals is their own uniqueness.
Okay, so we have a lot of women, mom entrepreneurs. We have our mayors, and some of them are, oftentimes, they'll say, gosh, I don't know if I'm very good at presenting. I get a little bit nervous. I don't know how to, put my message out there. Why? I mean, we know it's important to communicate effectively as a business owner, but can you give us some, tips or something that can help these women
to get over that initial, I mean, it's a fear.
Well, it's a big fear, and it's not just for mom entrepreneurs. I see it everywhere. And what I recognize is that a product, a service, an idea is only as good as your ability to communicate the passion and communicate the value of that product, that idea, or that service. And that's the awareness that women need on the get-go. You've got to be able to communicate the value and passion, or you might as well stay at home.
Well, so your background, just to back up a little bit, you go into corporations and teach employees, management level, whomever, how to present and communicate effectively for the company. It's a skill set.
Oh, it's absolutely a skill set. It's an automatic competency that everybody needs to know, whether they're working for an employer or a corporation. I work with senior management, or they have their own business. They need to be able to get out there. It can be the cold call the mom has to make that she's terrified to make.
See, that's a huge one.
And I also think it's a skill that children need to be learning.
Well,
I think it's something that our
exactly.
kids really need to be learning, because in our school they do presentations and the kids have to give speeches, but the kids have to, and even at our school they're doing PowerPoint presentations.
Wow.
But I'm thinking that's really not a great way to teach a kid to be an effective communicator, because you're giving them a crutch that as they get older they're not going to have. An effective communicator can communicate an idea without having to have a bunch of visual aids.
Absolutely, and my rule of thumb with everyone I coach is, could you give your presentation if the power went out?
There you go.
There you go. So what?
And if you can't, you're in trouble.
I agree.
Right, and what mistakes do you see? Because I'm sure, I mean, I'd never want to speak with you in the audience, because what mistakes do we make as presenters?
The common mistakes I see with inexperienced presenters really fall into 3 categories. I'd say the first one is a lack of preparation, and sometimes that comes from the fear. They're afraid of it, they want to avoid it, they push it away until they're short on time, and they're not prepared. And that becomes then the excuse for not achieving their objective that they really want to set out. Well, I didn't really have time. So anytime that we create these excuses by not preparing,
Right.
we give ourselves a crutch. The second thing is lack of organization. I would say that 90% of the speeches I hear need to be rewritten because they're not very well organized. People tend to ramble, and again, that comes from the preparation. But it also comes from straying from your objective. And when you're making that cold call, or you're going into that buyer in the store, or you're trying to convince someone to invest in your business, you have to always come back to, what is it that I want this listener to do, to believe, to know, to buy, to vote on? And the lack of organization comes when people lose sight of the objective because they get too caught up in
Right,
themselves.
exactly.
Well, and I think on that point, I think where effective communication breaks down is when someone's not being a good listener. It's,
Yes.
I mean, I think the best communicators are the best listeners.
Absolutely, and I say that all the time. The best speakers are the best listeners.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks they've made it as a speaker and they don't need to keep working on their journey is fooling themselves, because it usually means they've got something canned that they do all the time, and they've stopped listening to their audience, and they've stopped shifting when necessary.
Now, did you have one more mistake? You said two.
Yeah,
Third
I do.
one?
Yeah, I did have a third. The common thing I see is incongruency, and what I mean by that is that the body language, the vocal quality, and the verbal content don't all work together. It means you may be saying certain words, but your body language is undermining you, or your tone doesn't back it up with the confidence. And so what we're trying to do is create congruency where all three of those things work together.
So you would work with like a mom in a direct sales business, and give me your pitch.
Exactly.
Okay, and then you would help them, okay, stop right there, let's back up, that type of thing. And how would a session look?
When I coach individuals or people in groups, the session, first we're talking about the nuts and bolts. So we get the information, the template, how do you organize? Now, some people in direct sales, they already have a script
Sure.
that they're working off of.
Exactly.
But the key is getting them doing it. Because a script is wonderful, but if you create it, you know it. So you have to turn that script, even if you're given a script, you have to turn it into something that organically works for you.
Exactly.
And so I get people actually up presenting, whether it's in person with me.
Oh, they must be so nervous.
They are, but
it's role playing.
It
It's
is,
great
yeah.
role playing, or even we can do it via Skype. I get people actually showing me what they do, and then I
That's
can
a great
bring
idea. I
the
love Skype.
Yeah, I can bring that
Awesome.
expertise, that objective eye, that 40,000-foot view that can point out issues where they may not see them or where their nerves are clouding their view.
Well, and you brought us also a list of really great tips for an effective presentation and being a good communicator.